right, guys, so here we are in our next presentation. We are looking at 14.1 and 14.2, which is called Interactions in Ecosystems. Our key concepts: we have every organism has this thing called a habitat and a niche. And organisms interact as individuals and also as populations. Our new vocabulary is habitat, ecological niche, competition, competitive exclusion, predation, symbiosis, mutualism, commensalism, parasitism, and ecological equivalence. Essential question: what is an organism? I can't talk today. What is an organism's habitat, niche, and relationship with other organisms in an ecosystem? All right, so our first thing, a habitat differs from a niche. So basically, a habitat is all the biotic and abiotic factors in an area where that organism lives. It's basically where you can find it. Okay, so it's living there, it's the ecosystem, the abiotic and the biotic factors where that organism lives. The niche is like the role, the job, what that species does to survive, stay healthy, and reproduce. So it includes its food, the abiotic conditions that it's affected by, its behavior, maybe how it nests, how it reproduces. It's basically its role that it plays in that environment. Resource availability gives structure to community. And species can share habitat and resources, but they don't share nicely, as you know. And remember, survival in our ecosystems is based on survival of the fittest, right? If you are stronger, faster, have better camouflage, you're going to survive better in order to pass on your genes. And competition occurs when two organisms fight for the same limited resources. And I say limited because resources are not unlimited in an environment. There's not enough food for everybody. There's not enough shelter for everybody. There's not enough nesting areas, all sorts of different things. So there's competition. And you have interspecific, which are different species competing over those resources, and then intraspecific, which are the same species fighting over those resources. Now we have this thing called the competitive exclusion. This is when two species use the same resources in the same way, but one species will be better adapted to that environment. And so because of that, one will either be pushed out or become extinct. So one's going to say be pushed out of that environment and say, you got to go find somewhere else to live because I'm here doing this. Sometimes the niche can be divided and those two species can live together. But usually those two species will diverge, separate from each other to find new niches and evolve separately. Okay. Next thing, predation. We know this, predator-prey relationships. And predation occurs when one organism captures and eats another. Then we have symbiosis. Symbiosis is a close ecological relationship between a close ecological relationship between two or more organisms of different species that live in direct contact with one another. They kind of live together and form some kind of relationship. And there's three specific types of symbiotic relationships. One of which we can talk about in a little bit, is a sea anemone and the clownfish. They live together and they actually both help each other out. Because they're both helping each other out, we call that mutualism. In mutualism, both organisms get a benefit, just like this bat who's eating the fruit from this cactus. This is a cactus that blooms at night. This bat is actually the pollinator for this plant. So they benefit each other. The plant's getting a reward, and the bat's getting a reward. That's mutualism, just like my clownfish and the anemone. Then I have commensalism. Commensalism, one organism benefits, but the other one basically is just there. It's not harmed, but it's not getting a benefit either. An example of this would be like those little air plants that live in a tree. The air plant's getting a benefit because it can go up higher in that tree and get more sunlight, but the tree's not really getting a benefit from it. It's not getting harmed either, but it's not benefited. Another example would be these little mites that live on our eyelashes. Okay, they don't harm us, but they actually eat our oil and some of our dead skin and some of that kind of gross stuff. And again, it doesn't hurt us, but it doesn't really help us either. And then we have a not nice kind of relationship, parasitism. One organism benefits and the other one is actually harmed in the process. An example are these little wasp larvae that are on the back of this poor caterpillar. They actually feed on that caterpillar and eat it, and that caterpillar obviously will eventually die because the wasp eggs will actually, the wasp larvae will actually eat it up. Also, parasites can really hurt us, like intestinal parasites, things like fleas on our animals, ticks that suck our blood, mosquitoes. So parasites meet their needs as ectoparasites, which are outside of our body, like leeches, ticks, mosquitoes, or endoparasites, ones that live inside our bodies or inside the bodies of other animals like hookworms and roundworms and tapeworms. Next, we have ecological equivalents. Ecological equivalents are species that occupy similar niches but live in totally, completely different geographical regions. Okay, so we have these little poison arrow frogs. Some of them live in Madagascar. Some of them live in South America. They do the same types of behaviors, the same types of things, the same kind of reproductive strategies, but they live in completely different regions. So I want you to take a look at these here. So all of the environmental features in an area where organisms live is known as its what? And I want you to think about that for a second. Hopefully you answered correctly. I want you to try another one. A lion's ecological niche includes its behavior and what? It would also include its position on the food web. The idea that two species cannot occupy the same niche is known as what? I'll give you a minute to think about that one. Hopefully you answered competitive exclusion. When two species compete for the same resources, their ecological niche may be they might get split into two separate niches. Ecological equivalents are species that occupy similar niches. What did we just say about them? They're found in different geographical regions. Two robins eating worms is an example of hopefully you said competition. Predation is best described as, give you a minute to read your possible answers. Hopefully you said A, one organism capturing and eating another. Aphids eat the sap from plants and excrete sticky waste that ants eat. The ants protect the aphids from predators. This type of interaction is called what? So think about those symbiotic relationships. What kind was it? This one is mutualism. They're both getting a benefit. The ants protect the aphids, and the aphids eat the sap. An oak tree provides a sparrow a place to build a nest. The nest neither benefits nor harms the tree. What is the name for that kind of relationship? And again, think about the symbiotic relationships. Which kind is it? Well, you said commensalism because one is benefited, the other one is not harmed, but it doesn't get a benefit either. One difference between parasitism and predation is that parasites and this one, those predators keep their hosts alive for a period of time before eventually, it does take them sometimes a really long period of time to pass away from a parasite infection. Anyway, so there is 14.1 and 14.2. You are going to be watching a video about some of these different relationships and then doing a little handout about it. Anyway, thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.